Hello and welcome to What It Takes from Blue Ridge PBS, where we try to take a broad view of education in the Commonwealth by talking to interesting educators and experts in the region. Even before the pandemic, being a middle schooler was tough. As kids go from the safe cocoon of elementary school, they often find themselves adrift in a new environment. This can be especially true for girls. My guest today is Dina Imbriani, a founder of Mountain Shepherd Adventure School in Craig County. Dina's had a long career in media and business and now is an entrepreneur, designing and running courses in all kinds of survival from her base at Mountain Shepherd. A few years ago, she began working with students at Hollins University leading courses, and that led to the development of GEMS, which stands for Girls Empowered at Mountain Shepherd. Welcome, Dina.
Thanks, Tom.
In the spirit of full disclosure, I just want to say Dina and I have known each other for a long time, and I have been so excited to watch what goes on at Mountain Shepherd. And when you started the GEMS program, you know, it just is, as someone who's taught middle school, it's just such an important thing for girls to experience. And but before we talk about GEMS, just tell me a little bit about Mountain Shepherd. What goes on there?
Well, lots goes on at Mountain Shepherd. I like to think of it as a place where outdoor education meets adventure. So we run courses with my staff. Their experience is from hiking the Appalachian Trail to leading the outdoor program at Hollins University. So a wealth of experience to help me out there and to work with folks. But we run courses that, you know, it's basic survival in the wilderness, weekend courses, longer courses where you can really practice some skills. We can include bushcraft with that, and then we do adventures. So we go backpacking, we'll do hiking day trips, we'll go off trail and put those survival skills to the test. Do private courses with different folks, women's groups, or private schools will come, and we may do hikes, we may go canoeing, we may go kayaking or rock climbing. So we do all those adventures as well. And
what I think people might be surprised to know when they arrive is that, you know, it's not just a bunch of tents and a rough living. You've got quite a little gem on your mountain ridge there. Talk a little bit about your facility.
Oh, the facility, I've got the main lodge is about 6,000 square feet, so I can sleep about 46 people inside. Great big multi-purpose room. Upstairs, there's what I call the pub, which is got a commercial kitchen and can provide meals if that's going to be part of the experience. 100 acres, there's a cabin on the property that I also rent. So it's a great place. I've had some wonderful family reunions, a couple of weddings, which is a lot of fun. So there's lots to do there.
Okay, and before we talk about GEMS in particular, I know most of your curriculum you talk about, is it the 7 priorities? And can we talk about those a little bit?
Oh, sure.
So when we talk about survival, but also sort of backcountry living.
Right. So, well, every course, whether it's survival based or it's more adventure based, will include the 7 priorities of survival. So there's 7. Kind of check them off in order. Should something happen, you run through them, but they're all very, very important. So the first priority always is to get your head in the right place. So it's to maintain that positive mental attitude. So you make good decisions. It's dealing with stress and maybe the fears of the situation that you may be experiencing. So we spend quite a bit of time talking about that.
How do you, let's say people find themselves in a stressful situation. You're amped up, right?
Right.
So what do you tell people to do to get themselves into that frame of mind for positive mental attitude?
The first thing is to stop, right? So stop, sit down, think, observe, and get your plan together. And it could take 30 seconds, it might take 5 minutes or 30 minutes to kind of get your head in the right place and process what's going on. Part of also maintaining that positive mental attitude is prepping before you go, right? So knowing that you've got something that's going to take care of all of your priorities. So going through the list of the gear, what do I have? What do I need? How do I take what I have and turn it into what I need? And that's kind of the gist of everything that goes on. But if any real life survival situation that you hear about that makes the news or the TV or newspapers, it's people will talk about the decisions that they make and how they got through it. What is their will to survive? Why do they want to get back, to their family, friends, those sorts of things. That's what gets you through. You're never going to hear anyone say they survived just because they ate dandelions. It's all about those decisions and how they process through the stress of it.
Right, and if you don't have positive mental attitude, the rest of it doesn't matter.
It can take you down the slippery slope of bad decisions, right? So the better you know yourself and how you react and respond to stressful situations in the front country will help you realize and help you prepare should something go wrong when you're in the back country.
Okay, so once somebody's got their positive mental attitude, they find themselves stranded on a mountainside as a result of a plane crash or something else,
Right.
what are the next things they should worry about?
Well, after you take care of your mind, then you want to take care of your body and think about wilderness first aid. So we go through what you need in an individual first aid kit to take care of yourself, and also how to take care of somebody else that may be with you or you might come upon while you're out. So you need to take care of your body. Treat any injuries. You don't want to get in a situation, well, I've dealt with the stress, I'm here, well, you know what, I sprained my wrist and I'm focusing on that and that pain rather than treating it, taking care of it, and moving on so you can take care of the rest of your priorities. If you're bleeding, that bleeding needs to stop.
Right, no doubt, no doubt.
Right,
And so now you got your mind right, your body's okay, where do we go from there?
Right, so now you want to think about getting a shelter up to protect you from the elements. So that's the wind, the rain, the heat and the cold, those things that are coming at you that you can't control. And then how long are you going to be in this situation? Is it an hour? Is it going to be overnight? Or might it be a day or two, just depending on where you happen to be in the backcountry. So we'll build several different types of shelters, some immediate action shelters or something that might be a little bit longer term. And the thing about it is it doesn't need to be pretty, it just needs to work, right? So it's focusing on what do I need, how am I going to get through this moment in time? Again, it could just be 30 minutes that you need to get a shelter up.
Right, so you may not need the additional skills, you may not need to know how to find grubs in a stump or so that you can eat or but you do need water. That's an important one, right?
Right, so water's down the line, right? So after shelter, then we want to get a fire going, right? Because there's so many reasons to have a fire in a survival situation, whether it's purifying your water or heat or light or scaring away animals, or just to boost your positive mental attitude because it's wilderness TV when you're out there.
Right.
So we get a fire going, and then next we want to be able to signal and communicate so that rescuers can find us. So how are we going to send out those signals? And then we want to start thinking about water and food. Now, if you have water and food with you, sip on that water and nibble on that food. But we can go a little while without focusing on
how long
water.
can somebody, I know people get worried about,
Right,
what am I
right.
going to eat, but how long, if I find myself in a survival situation and I expect it's going to be a day or two, how much do I really need to worry about food?
Well, there's the rule of threes, right? We can go 3 minutes without air, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food. Okay, but only 3 seconds without hope, which is why positive mental attitude's always first.
Right.
But we're used to eating at a certain time, so it is something that we're going to think about. So while we're taking care of some of our other priorities, let's take a look and keep your survival eyes on. Just because you're making your shelter doesn't mean you can't be watching out for where some food opportunities might be.
But don't eat some mushrooms just because they happen to be handy.
Do not
right?
eat the mushrooms, right?
All right. And so just quickly, I may have taken you off track by interrupting you, but what are the other skills, the other priorities that people need to have?
Oh, well then after shelter is fire, then signaling, and then finding your water, and then your food. So that
Okay,
takes
so that's
care
really
of
like the last one, so we
Right.
did get through them all.
Right.
Okay, great. I don't know if this is true, but I know that you were very excited when you started working with Hollins.
Right.
With their winter program, winter term, and teaching some of the students there, and that's really helped you expand your network. But so talk about that a little bit, and also how that led you to GEMS.
Well, it absolutely did lead to GEMS on a couple of different fronts. So with the January term course at Hollins, we teach survival skills and then make connections to life at school, at working on teams, personal development, life outside of school, and those things. So we make all those connections, and it's one of my favorite months of the year, I have to say. I enjoy that so much. And teaching that for a couple of years, I just started thinking, where should these skills actually start? When should we start as young women or girls to make some of these connections? And the survival priorities relate to every aspect of life, from college to middle school to empty nesters to all, corporate life, all sorts of things we can build programs around. And I just sort of went back to a book I had read, Reviving Ophelia,
sure.
about middle school life and what we go through. And I can't think of anyone that would want to relive those middle school years. It's where we start to look without, from afar rather than from ourselves. And we need to make sure that we can kind of stay true to who we are. And staying true to who we are, we can keep that in middle school. We can keep that through high school and through college and through life.
So much is formed in that time. I'm sure you think about this a lot, but how do you think about middle school as a survival situation, right?
Right.
Especially for girls. What's that look like for you?
And it's different now than it was, a few years ago when I was in middle school, because of social media and all those things that are going on, and there's a lot more pressure and stresses, and making sure that you are what everybody thinks you should be, right? And we need to focus on what you think you should be.
Right.
And then back to the Hollands, my counselors come from Hollands, right? So they're graduates or they've been in my class.
A little closer to middle school, it's been
right.
burned into their psyche a little more.
Which is so much fun because they have read a lot of the same books. They know the same songs. They watch the same shows and laugh at the same jokes. So I learn a lot from them as well with that.
And what great role models for middle school girls than those kids who come from Hollands that probably a little more relatable, right? Because they're a little closer in age.
So someone to look up to.
Right. And in terms of you've talked about this a little bit, but how do you adapt those 7 priorities that we talked about to that, to the life of a middle school girl?
We teach the skills, so I'm gonna teach the backcountry
Right.
skill, and then we do different activities to make those connections. So, for example, when we're talking about the stresses of a survival situation, which comes with a whole list of fears of just being outside or being alone. Those same connections apply to life, right? There's things to be afraid of. It's a new school, it's a new class, there's new people, there's new friends. Maybe they just moved, maybe they're trying out for, a play or sports or something, for the first time. So we set up scenarios and different activities to talk through those situations. So, for example, for fun, what we do to make a positive mental attitude connection is we write up scenarios, stick them in a balloon, and the girls have to pop the balloon with a body part, other than their hands, and read the scenario, and we talk about it, and we have great discussions about different situations that are real, that come from the girls' past or the counselors, the real life situations, and talk through, and it often, leads into many other situations that they found themselves in, or they found their friends in, that they had to help them through situations. So it all relates back to, dealing with the first time they slept in a tent outside, or in a hammock, or made a fire, whatever those situations are.
I was really happy when I visited, I think it was a year ago or so, when I came to one of your GEMS camps
right.
and was taking some pictures and things. And the girls, down in the creek, getting muddy, getting dirty, finding little animals, holding them up. And what was great is that they weren't, even if they were squeamish about holding a creature out of the creek or whatever, the amount of support they all had for each other was really sweet. And I have sons, not daughters, but I can just imagine, how they come home changed but also how separated in that place apart, how separated from that and with a different group of girls, how they're maybe able to be themselves a little bit more. And maybe talk a little bit about how a lot of the girls leave at the end of the week or however long their experience is compared to when they arrive.
That's the most fascinating and I think most rewarding part. So whether they're a first-year camper or a sixth-year camper, the growth during the week is fabulous. And one of the things that kept me doing this was the first week of the first year of camp. A girl was terrified to even just be there. Had never been away from home, had never been to camp, had never really spent any time outside. And she kind of sat like this, right, just terrified. And after a week of being with girls who were really in the same situation, it was all new for everyone, and trying all these things and being brave and stretching her comfort zones, when she left, she had the Wonder Woman pose on, wearing her superhero cape, right, saying, I feel so confident now. And it's a combination of doing something you've never done before, and then having the support. We talk about what the goals are, what they're trying to accomplish, what do they want to get out of the week, maybe that they've never done, and so everyone knows what everyone else's goal is. So we can encourage that, right? For some, this is a really scary thing. For some, it's I can't wait to dig in. So right. It's that help from each other is a fabulous part of it. And
you've talked a little bit about it, but that first GEMS course, clearly there were some things that were the things that surprised you, and how do you at the end of a session kind of use that experience to adapt for the next one?
Learn from every camp, and every camp session is a little different because the personality of the girls are very different. I think one lesson that I learn, or it's my favorite part when camp is over, is to think about everything that I learned from those girls, right? Because of what they do have, that what comes up, their confidence, their compassion that they show for each other, or they bring up something that from their science class about the flora and fauna outside that they can share with the group. Right. So there's always nuggets that I learn from them, and it's just, I couldn't love them anymore.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. As a former now teacher, I've always been surprised by how much the kids have to teach you if you just listen and are able to kind of gather that information. I know that because we've talked about it, like diversity is really important to you.
Yes.
How do you help promote that within the GEMS program? I mean, I know there's a cost for people to come,
right? And
also, I don't know if it is, but it might be harder to recruit a diverse, people from all backgrounds, races, and everything else. How are you kind of working to promote that at Mount Shepherd?
I want GEMS Camp to be there for every girl that wants to, and if they want to be there, I want to make it available. I do have an opportunity for people to donate to help with scholarships and offer those, which is wonderful. I have a friend that sponsors a girl every year. Just to offset the cost. I do try to keep it affordable too. It's an opportunity. It's something I love. So if I can do that during the weeks of the summer, it makes for a great summer vacation for me. So it's cost. I don't want it to be cost prohibitive for anyone. If a girl wants to be there, we'll figure out how to get her there for sure.
Right. The things that you teach at the school, obviously they're designed to apply to their everyday lives. As you talk to girls who have been through the program throughout the year, and I don't know what kind of community you have with them after the session is over, but what do you hear from them in terms of how what they learned at the GEMS camp applies to what they're going through as young women?
I love it when they come back every year. the girls that come back. So it gives us an opportunity to really kind of dig deeper into some of those things and how some of the lessons that they learned can apply. This year had a girl that, again, was trying out for a new school that was focused on drama and singing and those sorts of things. So we talked about how she was sort of able to draw on the confidence that she's gained summer after summer to put herself out there to try out for that. And she made it. So, I mean, there's always good things that come from putting yourself out there. So it's things like that, to giving reports or making new friends, or a couple girls have moved across the country and came back, right? So they had to experience all those things. So it makes for great conversations. The second year the girls come back, we're backpacking. So I get a lot of good one-on-one time with them when we're hiking to catch up on all those things.
So there's a different experience. If a girl comes back, they're not going through the same camp again.
Right.
You assume they've already got those base skills, and you kind of expand on that?
Right. Well, so there's a natural progression. When the girls come the first year, we stay on Mount Shepherd. We do the survival skills. We make all the connections. Second year, we go backpacking. So we hike off the property. We hit the Appalachian Trail. We spend 2 nights out there. So it's quite an adventure. Part of the climb is pretty intense. So it's quite a challenge. And we, for COVID, we hammock. Or we'll tent, before that. And then we'll go canoeing on the last day. Caving, we'll get back to that once we have opportunities when COVID's over. So that's the second year. Third year, we canoeing and rock climbing. Fourth year, we go out to Covington along the Jackson River, and we tube and we kayak and we bike. We come back, do a sunset hike to McAfee's Knob and go ziplining.
Nice.
Fifth and sixth years combined this year, we did stand-up paddleboarding, we rock climbed, we did a pretty intense backpacking trip up to backside of Dragon's Tooth and down, and then did a fun canoe trip.
So this is more, I talk about this as a middle school program. It starts as a middle school
Right.
program, and then you carry these girls all the way through to college.
Right.
You touched on it, but I want to, we've got a few minutes left here still. One of the things, this program itself was born out of COVID, as a way to kind of help people and help educators. You were just hitting your stride when COVID hit the first time. What did that mean to you, and how did you adapt?
2020 was poised to be my best year ever. So it was a little disheartening in the middle of March to have all the cancellations of big groups and things like that. But with safety precautions, being outside, having enough indoor space, I was able to keep some of the programs going last year. So rather than having 3 or 4 events going on at the same time, I had one. So it kept the momentum going, and I'm very grateful that I was a business that was able to survive it. This year started out pretty good, once the vaccine started, so spring through now, but with the variants, things are canceling for October, so it's okay. We'll get through this too.
Luckily, you have all the skills that you need as someone who teaches survival to do survival.
And there are a lot of positive mental attitude. Practice what I preach for sure, but it definitely gets you through.
And I know hospitality helped you out too, as well. You can talk about that just a little bit.
Right. So the lodge and the cabin are on Airbnb. So that has helped get people outside. It has had people, particularly last year, drive from Virginia Beach just for a day with their family just to get away. Right. So it was helpful for me to have people there, and it was helpful for them. So we made it work.
I haven't given you this opportunity yet, so if people want to know more about Mount Shepherd or about GEMS or the other programs you do, what is the best way for them to find out more?
The website is mountainshepherd.com. I also have a website just for GEMS, which is allgirlsargems.com. So you can find me there. Email me, Dina@mountainshepherd.com. It's great too.
Okay. And anything that we haven't talked about that what's coming up for the future for you? What do you think? How do you think GEMS is going to change in the next year or so?
Well, talking with the girls that had been here for 5 or 6 years this summer and things that they want to keep doing, because now they're 15, 16, they want to keep coming back, and they've bonded and they want to see their friends. So we're going to look at doing longer backpacking trips and longer canoe trips and things like that.
Just
focus
more
and more, and
Well,
keep it going.
That's great. Well, I'm so happy that you were able to come here, that more people are able to learn about GEMS. I've told a lot of people I know, especially those who have young girls. So as we close the program, I'd like to thank you again, Dina, for sharing your stories with us today.
Thank you, Tom.
I'm so glad that you took the time. And for What It Takes, I'm Tom Landon. Thanks for watching.